And okay. YouTube, what is everybody? You guys know me as Remy from Remy's Roundtable. We have our guest spotlight segment for you guys. We are about to get started here in just a little bit, so you guys can see both of our lovely faces. But right now, for all of our YouTube channels, YouTube subscribers, please join our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/, Remy's Roundtable. You can join us for just you can join the crew for just $3 a month. It's a lot of fun. You guys can see all of our bonus contents. Get to see all of our, all of our interviews as well. So we're about to get started here in just a little bit, trying to find some music for you guys for a little bit to listen before we get started here. You know what's weird, Matt? I can't find the right music to have our listeners listen to. So I play like the old school music, and I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of in the mood for, a little bit of Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Sounds good to me.
Oh yeah, man. But I'm not gonna play right now. Come on, come on. Load up, baby. Just load up for me. All right. Let's see. Come on. You got it. You got it. And all right, cool. All right, guys. Here we here we go. Welcome back, everybody, to Remy's Roundtable, the Florida theme park podcast. We are glad that you guys are back with us. Yeah. So, if you, like I said in the beginning of the show, if you guys would like to become a member of our Roundtable family, please do so. You can join us for just $3 a month, and you guys get to see some extra content, get to see some, some that little extra stuff that we don't really show on this program. So, welcome back, everybody. Of course, you guys can reach us at 407-536-7153. So welcome back, everybody. My name is Remy, and with me, as always, the crew is still with us. We have Mark, Jen, Mike, and Nicole with us as well. But guys, it is now time for our guest spotlight segment. All right, so yeah, so today, guys, for our guest spotlight segment, you puppy, go away. Go. So with our for our guest spotlight segment, guys, we have you know what I was talking to this gentleman, and apparently he knows my dad. So this is a huge little shocker for me. I'm like, hold up, you know my dad? That is insane. So I'm actually really shocked about that. But you guys have heard him on Real Radio 104.1 with Monsters in the Morning, talking to the whole crew, and yeah, we're gonna talk to Monster Matt, or also known as Matt McEwen. Matt, what's up, man? How you doing?
It's nice to talk to you, man. I'm doing great. I just was on the Monsters a couple hours ago.
How are they? How are they doing? How's the
They're doing
monster?
great. They're doing okay.
Yeah. So did you drive all the way from Holly Hill to Maitland to go to their studio?
Oh yeah,
Oh my gosh, dude. That's why would you make that drive? That's like that, what is that, like an hour drive at least?
it is. It's an hour drive, and I love the show. I've been a fan for 30 years,
So you've been listening how long? So you've been listening to the show for 30 years?
literally since 1994. Yeah, I entered college in '93. In my second year of college, I was taking some night classes. I think one of them was astronomy, which was really cool because you got to actually, we went up on the roof and would look at the stars for astronomy class. And when I would get out of class, they would be on. And so I started catching them and listened all through, their days on the midday and, then coming into the morning. So yeah, I've been listening consistently for that long.
I've been listening since when I was in elementary school, believe it or not. So when I
Okay.
first, it was like maybe third, fourth grade. That's when I first started listening to Monsters in the Morning. And my parents, I mean, they got me hooked on, real radio at a younger age. So I remember listening to the Buckethead show. I remember listening
Yeah, man.
to SBK, Monsters in the Morning, and then of course the Phillips File. And that's where, like, I got really hooked on talk radio. So although my show is not about, talk radio as much, I try to put it in as a talk radio, but it's a Florida theme park podcast. So we talk about all the things that's happening at the theme parks, but during our segment. So like for our guest spotlight segment, I kind of want to talk to people who are kind of outside of that range. People who don't really work for the theme parks, people who are in a different, have a different mindset on where they work for what they do for a living. So it's pretty cool, man. So you are a sound engineer and you're also a pastor, man. Tell me how does that work, man? How that all came together?
Well, so my dad is also in ministry. My dad's a pastor. I have a brother that's a pastor. My uh, grandfather and great uncle were pastors. My father-in-law is a pastor. So I just have a lot of people in my family that are in ministry, and also just have a real heritage in music. I've been a musician all my life. Started playing piano when I was 4, and picked up guitar and drums and bass and various other things along the way, and been a songwriter forever. So I for about 10 years before I started doing it professionally, I was hanging out at a studio where I met your dad. Your dad is still the best bass player I've ever been in the physical presence of. He's absolutely incredible, and worked on several projects that he played bass on. But then in 2003, I started doing it professionally. Started my own studio, and so I've been doing that for over 20 years, doing engineering, producing, writing, arranging. I'm a singer as well, so I'm kind of a one man band. And what I always tell people is, don't ask me to throw a football. I don't do anything. I'm a music nerd, so been doing that for a long time. And in my capacity as a minister, I am the senior pastor of my church in Holly Hill, just outside of Daytona Beach, and we've got about 120 people in our church. It's not a huge place, but I've always been what's called a bivocational pastor. So I've always done ministry, but then had to do something on the side to supplement my income in order to pay my bills. Um, so what I've done for the last 20 years to supplement my income is has been running a studio.
That is so cool, man. I mean, you have your own studio. Now, my dad, he took me to multiple studio recording studios here in Florida, but I remember the one time that my dad was doing he was doing some he was doing some project, I can't remember where, but he told me, "Hey, if I'm gonna take you to the studio, I need for you to be on your best behavior. Do not touch anything that's on the board, nothing like that. Just sit in the back, put the headphones on, and listen to some amazing music." So as I was looking on how the soundboard works, I'm like, man, I need to go to school for this. I need to learn how to run a freaking board. But as I got older, I started buying my own mixers, and of course, my good friends over at a corporate time with Tom and Dan, they actually gave me a really good mixer, and I've been using it ever since. So it's a great, a great little opportunity for them to do that for me, and I'm still tweaking out on how to get that crystal clear audio sound where you hate all the humming, the hissing. It just sucks. So I'm like, how can I make this better? So tell me, man, do you have any tips on that? Like how to make it crystal clear?
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of it has to do with the quality of your gear. Unfortunately, in the music industry, in the recording industry, you get what you pay for, and stuff is just expensive. And so you try to do as good as you can. There are some little tricks of the trade that you can do, like using noise gates and things like that to sort of help your sound. It is very interesting though, going back in the day when I first started recording, I was using analog tape. I was recording on reel to reel, and I still have an analog tape machine, an 8-track tape machine, and I've done projects with an analog board and that tape machine. And just, because everything is in computers now, everything's in the box and everything is perfected and everything. But I've had a really good time. In fact, my son is in a surf rock band called Blind Purpose, and they've been playing all the monsters before, and they actually played on one of the live broadcasts. But their first couple of songs I completely recorded analog, no computer at all. And when you do that, you're going to get noise. But when you're doing it like that, it's almost part of the glue that holds it all together, all the noise and the hiss and everything. So yeah, there are things you can do to get rid of it, but my question is do you want to, or is there some magic in the noise?
Well, I mean, every time I record and edit everything, I'm like, okay, I am sick and tired of this background noise. Like, I'm sick and tired of hearing, the dog barking or hearing the fan going off, hearing all those vibration sounds that nobody can hear while they're recording. But for me, I had that ear where I'm like, okay, the fan's going, okay, your cell phone's vibrating, your TV is still on. I can pick out that sound, take it out, and then use a noise gate to drop it down so nobody can hear it. And I'm like, how in the world can I do this when I didn't even go to school for this? This is the thing, man. I didn't even go for school for broadcasting or for, studio work. It's just insane on how much I can pick up just by doing it hands on, and it's so freaking cool. Like all my buddies who do have a podcast are like, Remy, how's your sound so good? I'm like, well, it's called getting to know your system, getting to know what your plugins are, getting to know your software program. What sound do you really want for your just for your what you call it your sound your for your program. So if you want that background noise, go ahead, use it, but it's not going to sound good on a podcast. You got to keep it nice and dry. So
Yeah, if you're doing podcast stuff, you do need to keep it nice and dry. So industry question, audio guy to audio guy. I see you're using a Shure mic. Are you using any kind of like a cloud lifter or anything to boost that signal?
so we are actually I am actually logged in. I am actually in my Ethernet cable. So I'm like actually logged into just by my Wi-Fi. So I'm actually
Oh,
set.
rock on.
Yeah,
Cool.
so I mean it works, but sometimes it does get choppy because I have a lot of cords in my area. So right now, like I'm using a two-channel audio interface, and I'm using just right now what I'm recording on. I am recording on Audacity, and then with all my editing, I use WavePad for all my editing tools. So that way I
That's
can
really cool.
so I can pick out what type of sound I really enjoy. So I can keep that sound going on throughout the entire episode. So that way I don't I mean, I've used Audacity's editing program before, but to be honest, man, I don't like it. I don't like their editing quality. I just enjoy I just use it for their recording purposes. That's it. But I mean everybody says you gotta have the right material. You need to have the best mics. You need to use, the best sound mixers. You don't really need that. If you have a good setup, you're good. You're set in stone. But if you want that nice mic, then spend the extra $100. I mean, who's bugging you with that? So
Right.
this is why I love doing this. So
That's great, man. I love talking gear. That's really cool.
and plus I record from home. So it's because everybody else, one of my buddies, they live in Florida, but they don't want to go outside their home. So I'm like, all right, cool. So everything's done from Zoom. We can stream from YouTube from Zoom, which is awesome. And my other buddy, he lives out in Pennsylvania area. So and he doesn't live in Florida. So I'm like, dude, come on, let's do it.
Why not?
So how long have you been in the studio industry for quite some time, right?
Yeah, I mean, professionally, I've done it for 21 years, but for 10 years before that, I was hanging out at a studio, recording a lot of projects and really just learning from the guy, my mentor. His name is Mark Agnafo. He had a studio in Chicago years ago. In fact, he recorded all the Smashing Pumpkins demos that eventually got me.
Whoa.
Yeah, so he still has the old analog tape machine from all that Smashing Pumpkins stuff, right before they got a record deal, and it's pretty cool. So he came down to Florida, I think, in 1988, the late 80s, and I started recording with him in the early 90s. I think 1992 is the first time I stepped into his place. And I've been to a lot of different studios, but what I have found in the studio world is it's not just the gear that you have, at least in music recording. It's not just the gear that you have because every studio pretty much has the same stuff. It might be different brands or whatever, but everyone pretty much has microphones, some sort of interface, nowadays a computer. it's really the vibe of the space that you're in and the personality of the engineer or producer that you're working with. And I just really dug this guy, Mark. He's still doing it. He does all my mastering for me, and he still records some. He also does a lot of interesting stuff. He does digital transfers. So he'll take like, old film or old reel-to-reel recording or vinyl or something and converts it to digital for people so it can be in a modern file format. But yeah, he's the man and taught me everything that I know from the analog side. I ended up around 2004 meeting a guy named Billy Chapin, who was the touring guitar player for Backstreet Boys, and then was the musical director for another pop group called O Town. And
Oh my gosh.
he taught me a lot of stuff about, and he goes way back in the music industry. He played songs for a Mexican boy band called Menudo way back in the day. But so he's done a lot of really cool stuff, and he's taught me a lot about the Pro Tools and the digital end of recording. So I've had some really good mentors. I've never gone to school for it myself, but then again, I took piano lessons for a year when I was a kid. Other than that, I'm a self-taught musician. So I've always just kind of been tenacious and patient and, trying to just learn myself, and people have helped me along the way. And so I try to help people as well when I can.
So what's cool about, being a musician is that I'm also a musician. I play sax, piano, bass, and drums. So anytime if I pick up my dad's old bass, I'll start playing a little bit. He goes, "How'd you know that tune?" I'm like, I watched you play over 100 times, Dad. So he goes, "Yeah, but you messed up on one note." I'm like, "Okay, you noticed one note that I messed up on." He goes, "Yeah, I kind of picked that out." I'm like, "Dad, you suck." So, but yeah, my dad, like, he gave me a few lessons, and after that, he's like, "All right, you're on your own. You're good." I'm like, "Oh, that really that quick?" Goes, "Yeah, you should play a couple tunes." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not going to, so I'm good." I mean, I just haven't really practiced that much like I used to. So, like, I was playing my dad's his old black Steinberger, where
Wow.
it was his very first bass. He used it on his old pop fusion group called Cold Fusion, and they would he that was the bass that he played. So, and he gave it to me, and then I gave it back to him. Say, "Hey, Dad, here I'm done with the bass right now." He goes, "Okay, well, if you ever need it, you know where it is, and then it's in the office. So go play around with it for a little bit." So I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I have to give props to my dad. So
That's
and
awesome.
and like any music that I don't know how to play, he will literally write every note out for me. He goes, "Okay, you're good. You can play it." I'm like, "Thanks, Dad." So so let's talk about, since you're doing music and stuff. Now, I overheard on Monsters in the Morning, they were saying, "Wow, it sucks that we can't play any more copyright music on our show because YouTube, apparently, if you play copyright music, YouTube will shut you down like within a second." So tell us, man, how did that all started? How did you meet Monsters in the Morning, and what made you to do, some of their rejoin music for them?
So I started doing rejoin music for them a few months ago, but I've been working with them for a couple of years. So how I first got hooked up with them, I mean, obviously, like I said, I've been a fan forever. When they had a band with when Tom and Dan were on the show, and they had a band that would tour around. I saw several shows with them, and always really loved Daniel because he's like me and you. He's a multi-instrumentalist, extremely talented guy, great singer, good writer. So anyway, how that all got started, Angel, the producer of the show, he was either sick or out of town. For some reason, he wasn't on the show a particular day. And Russ had started mentioning about wanting to have monster songs again. It used to be they would do a monster band of the year competition, and everybody would submit a monster song, and then people would vote, and they'd have a big concert. It was really cool. And everybody got to, whoever won got to have that title of Monster Band of the Year. And you got to put that on your banner. And it was always, kind of bragging rights. It was really cool. So they started toying around with the idea about, hey, if you want to write a monster song, do it. So a really cool band called Fire Inside. I think that's based out of Orlando. Submitted a song, a monster song, and it inspired me. I was like, man, I want to do this too. So I sent one in, but purposely sent it in when Angel was gone because Ryan Holmes from the Monsters was producing that day, and he loves pop punk music. So I purposely made a song called "Wake Up" to talk about waking up at 6 in the morning, listening to the Monsters, that kind of thing. And I purposely mentioned everybody on the show. I mentioned all the cast, and so I sent it to Ryan, emailed it to him, and said, hey, listen, if you want to play it. And because it was a punky type song, kind of a Blink 182 Green Day type of thing, he played it, and people liked it. And so I started doing just unsolicited. I just started sending the Monsters little things. Like the first thing I did for one of their segments, they used to do a thing back in 2020 called the Dum Dum Map. And
Oh
so I
yeah.
so I sent in a little song called "Where Did This Dum Dum Come From?" So I sent that in. They would play it every day when they do the Dum Dum Map. Well, then, they stopped doing that after a couple of years. So I did a couple more little songs, and so they still use every day. I do the song. I wrote the song that's the "It's Time for a Hot Take" song. So they do
It's
that
time
every
for
day.
the hot take.
Yeah. And also I do Ryan's KOD segment, his King of Denmark song. So I do that. And it's interesting you talked about the copyright thing. So
Right.
also every day, the song that Russ opens the show with is also me. Years ago, they played a Pantera song called Cowboys from Hell to
Yeah.
open the show. But number one, copyright stuff. And number two, um, the singer from Pantera has started saying some really nasty stuff, like
Yeah.
some like Nazi sympathizing stuff. And they're like, we don't want to play Pantera anymore. So I did like what I did after I submitted so let me back up a little bit. So after I submitted a couple of those songs, when they were doing the Monsters Sing album, the vinyl that they were raising money for autism awareness,
Right.
not autism, Down syndrome from Mark Tremonti. His daughter has Down syndrome. And so we were doing this project, and I hit Russ up and said, hey, listen, if you need any help doing this, because the band Fire Inside was doing a lot of tracks for them, kind of being their studio band. And they mentioned that they wanted to do a country song, but that Fire Inside didn't really do country. And so I reached out and said, hey, if you want to do a country tune, I could maybe help you out with that. So I ended up doing a couple songs on that Monster Sing album. And then when Russ started talking about he always wanted to do an album of himself, a lot of people don't know that back in the day, some of the songs that Bubba and Savannah would do, and other people on the show, a lot of those songs were written or co-written by Russ. And he doesn't take credit for that kind of stuff, but he's actually really a good writer and a clever guy with words, and comes up with good melodies. Even though he would admit to you he's not a great singer, he does come up with good melody ideas, good word ideas. So I messaged him and he said, "Yeah, let's make this album." So I made his album at our studio, and so then fast forward to once I started doing stuff for the show, songs for the show, and you can go on YouTube, go to I Heart Monsters, and to their channel. There's a whole playlist called Monster Music Man Matt, and it's a bunch of songs I've written for the show.
Oh my gosh, dude.
So there's probably 10 or 15 on there. But when they were getting pinged on YouTube, just before the first of the year, I said, hey, listen, would you like me to write kind of a Pantera-esque song, an instrumental for the opening of the show, and then it'd be copyright free and you could play? And he said, absolutely. So every day, that song that they very first start out with, and if you listen really closely, it sounds kind of Pantera-ish, and that's on purpose. It's an homage to Pantera. That's me. And then, like I said, every day they play the King of Denmark thing. They do the hot take thing, and then I've done various other things that have come and gone, like the Dum Dum Map and other stuff.
See, I'm surprised you're not on Fiverr, man. I mean, you could be doing songs for podcasting programs. You could be making some serious, income just by doing your stuff for on Fiverr. I mean,
So I need your help with that. Here's the problem. I'm an artist. I'm terrible at business. I'm a really good creative person. I'm terrible at self-promotion. I'm terrible at business. So maybe you can help me. I'll make you some good podcast music. You help me on Fiverr. How about that?
dude, that's a deal, man. I mean, hey, I'm a marketing guy here, man. So whenever it comes to marketing, I can help somebody out like that with on the spot. I mean, yeah, I got a few
Wow.
sponsors. I have a few sponsors, but you know what? Hey, I help people out, man. So that's what I do, man. So there you go.
That's
All right.
cool.
So yeah, so the King of Denmark. Let's talk about Ryan Holmes real quick. All right. So
Yeah.
it's weird that the first time when I heard that he wanted to do his own segment on the show, right? Because Ryan's from Denmark, like his ancestors came from Denmark, and I'm like, okay, Ryan, please, for the love of God, tell me you're not using the Denmark's national anthem for your bit. All of a sudden, okay, they're playing the Denmark national anthem for Ryan's bit. Okay, now let's tweak that up a little bit, Ryan. Okay, let's add some real music to it. What do you call? You call Matt. So there you go. I have to give you props on that, man. Thank you for making his segment just a little bit better.
Thank you so much. I tried to make it punk rock like he likes, but I also tried to add just one little ounce of Queen in there. So, yeah,
Wait. Where's the Queen part on that? I didn't hear any of the Queen part in that bit, man.
it's subtle, but it's kind of epic as it first starts out. There's a little bit of the drums and a little bit of the guitar. It's kind of anthemic, but like I said, I kept it really pop punk though, because that's what he loves. And then, of course, they love to lovingly disrespect that song. They love to yell out stuff during that song that are not the original lyrics. Let's just put it like that.
I mean, you have to put in, I if you had to do a remix, I want you to do it like when they making fun of, that last bit where they're saying they're wieners. That'd be perfect to add that in that song somewhere. Just a little cameo. So,
I will tell you, there was one time I did an alternate version that I did not tell Ryan about, and I sent it into Angel. And they've only played it once.
uh-oh.
And it was a version that had to do with, let's say, Ryan's defiling of bathroom sinks.
Oh, jeez. Ryan, you bad boy, man. You a bad
Yeah.
boy.
Yeah. That guy needs to learn how to use the restroom properly.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, you're a professional radio broadcaster now, Ryan. Use a Russian properly, man. I mean, come on. Now I gotta give you.
Ryan is awesome and he's super talented. And honestly, I think Ryan is the fastest person I've heard in my life as far as coming up with like a pun or a joke or something witty. It's unbelievable how quickly he comes up with a joke. It's so funny.
I mean, he has done stand up for way too long, and he knows how to get that punchline right there on the spot. And I've seen him done stand up multiple times, and every time I go see a show, I'm dying laughing. I'm like, oh my gosh, man, that was a great bit, great job, man. I'm glad that you're still doing comedy every once in a while. So that's good on his behalf. I think what he should do is sell his kettle corn business to somebody who can actually run it for him. So that way he can focus on, monsters in the morning and then still do stand up on the side, but he's not going to do it. There's no way he's going to do it.
Well, the interesting thing is, and it's like with me as well, um, you know, kettle corn is kind of a steady job, even though you never know exactly how much you're going to sell. That's something that is, kind of steady. I mean, he obviously, makes money at the station, but not a lot. He really doesn't. And he's talked about that before. I'm not telling any tales out of school. He's literally said how he makes like minimum wage on the station. And so,
Yeah.
but he's just such an integral part of the show now. I'm really a big fan of all those guys.
Let me answer this before we get into our rapid questions. So the rapid questions are coming from the late James Lipton from inside the Actors Studio.
I love that guy.
Here's my question. All right, how did you feel when you got the news about Bubba Whoop Ass Wilson?
I didn't think it was true at first, and I had to sit down. I really did. I was such a huge fan of his because Bubba was the type of guy. I only met him a few times, but Bubba was the type of guy that um, obviously was a genius musician, but on top of that was this veneer of the funny man, the funny guy. And I think the thing that we find with artistic people, and it's myself too, I'm putting myself in this basket as well. A lot of times people that do funny things, there's a darkness behind that. There's a pain behind that. We all know that Bubba had his struggles with substances and with different things. Um, it didn't have the easiest life, but that place of darkness actually fueled some comedy. Ryan has not had an easy life, and it's one of the reasons he's been able to be so funny. I've had some difficult stuff in my life. I've suffered some trauma in my life that I don't talk about on the radio just because we're trying to be funny and that kind of thing. But I actually suffered some pretty bad abuse from a family friend as a kid over a period of 3 years, like serious like bad stuff. And I think laughter and comedy, or just art in general, is a way that we cope with that. It's like a coping mechanism or a defense mechanism. And so when I heard about Bubba, I didn't want to believe it because I had been on his Facebook leading up to the time that he passed. And some of the stuff he was posting, I just was like, is he in trouble? I mean, some of the stuff, it just was so out there. And unfortunately, he had burned a lot of bridges in his life. But honestly, when I heard that he passed, I'm not kidding. I had to sit down. It kind of took the wind out of me for a second because he was such a big part of the show. And one of the reasons I loved the show, it was definitely the reason the show was so musical for so long. He was obviously the driving force behind the monster band and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it hit me kind of hard. I was really privileged. Russ asked me to come in on the day that they came back this new year and honored Bubba. My brother and I came in and sang Florida Boy, and that was a thrill to be there with Jeff, to do it in front of Jeff, and that kind of thing. So I honestly think that I mean nobody can fill Bubba's shoes, and nobody can take his place. But I honestly feel that one of my roles on the show at this point, along with Ryan, is to kind of bring music back into the show. And I just texted Russ out of the blue after Bubba passed, and I said, "Hey man, what would you think about me coming in once a week and doing a silly little song on the show?" And like what Bubba and Jeff used to do, listen to the show and then write something in real time and perform it at the end of the show. And he said, "Absolutely, let's do it." And so I've done it ever since the first of the year.
Yeah, I mean, when I got the news, my wife, she actually texted me. She goes, "Hey, are you okay?" I'm like, "What's going on?" She goes, "Yeah, Bubba passed away." I'm like, "No. Are you serious?" So I looked that up. I'm like, "You gotta be kidding me." So I mean, I've been on the same road with you, man. I've seen him perform live, and he is the man behind, the beer song on Monsters. Like he was that guy. So, but he was, like I said, man, he was such a great musician, and
Yeah.
yeah, he was a great guy too, man. I mean, hung out a little bit, and then he went on a separate way. I went on my separate way. So, like I said, he was a great guy. But let's get into it, man. It's now time for our rapid questions, and this coming from the late James Lipton from inside the Actors Studio. All right, first and foremost, man, what's your favorite word?
Wow. Home.
What's your least favorite word?
Alone.
What sound or noise do you love?
My kids laughing.
What sound or noise that you just cannot stand? Like you just hate it.
When people put their teeth on their fork when they pull it out of their mouth.
Ew, no, 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 no. Ew, ugh. I can't. Nope, no. Great. Now I got an image stuck in my head now. Thanks a lot, Matt. All right, now everybody wants to know, Matt, what's your favorite cuss word?
I don't cuss, but what I do, if you're a real radio fan from back in the day, there was an intern that the Phillips File had on, a young lady that had a Spanish accent, and what she would always say is "piece of dirt."
Oh my
And
gosh, who was that? Was that
I I forget her name, but I say
Dang.
piece of dirt all the time.
Oh, dirt. Okay, cool.
Yeah, piece of dirt. Yeah.
Piece of dirt. All right, now what besides your profession, what other profession would you like to obtain?
Wow. I'd love to be a college professor.
Okay, all right. And last and finally, if heaven exists, what do you want to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Well done.
Well done. All right. Well, Matt, thank you so much for being on our guest spotlight segment. Please let our audience know where can everybody check you out on social media. And if they want to come out to your studio, please let our audience know where you are located. And yeah, we'll go from there.
Rock on. You can check me out at monstermusicman.com, monstermusicman.com. Also on Facebook, I have a Facebook page called Follow Matt Live, and I post where I'm playing on there. Follow Matt Live. And yeah, but I have a band. I not only play as a solo act, but I have a band with my brothers called Nova Scotia. And you can check us out at novascotia.band. We're playing at Leesburg Bike Fest coming up on April the 27th on the main stage from 4 to 7. So come out and see Nova Scotia. We play, covers of famous radio hits in a slightly punk rock style while wearing kilts. So come look at my pale legs in a kilt and rock out with us.
You will never see me in a kilt, man. I will never wear a kilt. I mean, congratulations for wearing one, but I will not wear one, man.
Never say never. I'm going to try to convince you.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, we'll make that happen. All right, guys, we'll be right back. You guys are listening to Remy's Roundtable. YouTube guys, thank you so much for listening to our guest spotlight segment. Our next guest spotlight segment will happen on April 29th. That's April 29th. That is a Monday starting at 9 a.m. You guys want to tune in because at 9 a.m. We'll be doing a interview with Mr. Sean Altman from the group Rockapella. So we'll have him on, and of course, yes, we're gonna talk about where in the world is Carmen Sandiego because they've been on that show for way too many freaking years. So we're gonna talk to him for a little bit, get to know him, get to know him, get to know about his music, and who knows? I might sing "Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego" with him. So there you guys have it, and YouTube. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you guys.